Hello, everyone. Max here. Max Wild Stories going live. I'll be honest, so I didn't do it last week, and I was in the throes of creating my first video scripted video on YouTube. I was recording and editing it over that weekend, and so I guess actually, there might have been a meeting. I don't know what was going on last Friday, but it was a hot mess. I really do like going live though, because while I do enjoy the scripted part of it where I get to think through what I'm going to say, this also is, I think, helpful in some ways too, to just kind of be like, okay, here's just my word vomity thoughts on this particular topic, or here's questions that I got asked this week. And instead of creating a long drawn out video and, like I said, scripting it, here, let me just answer them, almost like in an office hours style type of format. So I have been thinking through quite a bit, especially as we're like winding down in quarter one. I wrote about it in my email newsletter this yesterday. Actually, I can't believe I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already Friday. And I've been thinking through like that customer journey side of things, of just reevaluating what that looks like for even in my business. I feel like often, especially as service providers, maybe we do the things for the other people. We don't always do it for ourselves. But in a like really high level, like I said, I'd love to do a full scripted video about this because I think it's a good topic. And I'm going to do a workshop next week over Zoom that will touch upon it as well. But just like that customer journey, being from people who have not heard of you to people who are still kind of, maybe they're not right there as far as they don't see why the problem is urgent for them yet, or maybe they're kind of still evaluating other options for themselves. All of those aspects. And then, of course, when they're eventually ready to make a purchase decision. One thing that I really liked about me taking copy school from copy hackers was there was a couple things. I think that one thing, it was acknowledging and validating that not everybody makes decisions, especially purchase decisions, in the same way. I took a couple of classes on consumer behavior in marketing school, and even through Coursera before I even started marketing school. And what was unfortunate about that is it wasn't bad. It was interesting to get that psychological perspective as it relates to, again, us consumers or buying. I think that was still interesting, but it was often centered on things that don't require a long buying cycle. It was like the B2C stuff. Because, when you go to the grocery store and you buy a gallon of milk, you do not spend more than maybe 20 seconds evaluating that decision. The same cannot be said of what I do, like brand storytelling or copywriting, or if you're a designer or you are a video editor, or, again, all of those service providers or content creators. There's more, or people who are, creating courses or workshops. There's a lot more that goes into being like, is this, worth my time? Because with the milk, for one, most milk tastes the same. I don't know about y'all. I mean, I'll say this: Chateau, which is a local Kansas City brand, has amazing milk. It tastes, it's local and it's in the glass jar. I don't know if that has anything to do with how it tastes, but it kind of does mentally. So I guess I'm kind of undercutting a little bit of my own point here. But in general, like, let's say I buy a milk that it's maybe like $1 cheaper than Chateau. But it's either going to taste okay. I'm like, okay, it's fine. It does what I need it to do. I cook with it, so I'm not drinking it straight out of the gallon regardless. But I'm also, let's say it's not that great. I'm only out like $5, right? I go, and then 2 weeks later, or a week later, however long it takes me to get through that milk, I go buy a different brand now. I won't buy that brand anymore. there's not really a lot of like opportunity cost that goes into effect when we're looking at like consumer products. Even things that are again that are either lower priced, or they are, you use them, they're um, like paper towels, or like you're going to go through the paper towels. If you don't like that brand, don't get it again. um, the same really can't be said for things like courses, right? If I buy a course from somebody, and I've done this, and I've spent one, two, $3,000, that's a substantial amount of money. If I'm not happy with it, then I'm not going to say I'm screwed, but I definitely feel like cheated. So I think that the whole process is a little bit different. And it's not that I see a lot of people like trying to do it that way of being like, but it's like validating to be like, some people, they feel the pain of the problem and they make a decision right away. I'll be honest, I'm not one of those people. I'm just not. And anytime I have made a split decision or made a decision fairly quickly, or at least quicker than I would have liked to, I've pretty much almost always regretted it. I, uh, I, I'm a turtle. I take a while to make decisions. And to me, it was validating in that copy school to be like, hey, there's some people who are fast action and fast takers. And there's some people who need to be nurtured a lot before they're ready, or they need to see a lot of evidence, or whatever that looks like, for, your specific, sales page or copy or whatever you want to call it. So that was validating for me. So I think that having, and it's stressed like, hey, have enough there for the slower people, but also again, use the bullet points and headlines for the people who do make decisions faster. Because we I think we put ourselves in our own, um, like, oh, if it were like, trying to do things like the way that we would do things, which is good, right? You're using empathy, you're just trying to be on that receiving end of whatever marketing or sales or copy or whatever that you are trying to put out there. But not everyone's going to make decisions the same way as you. So to me, it was helpful to see through like both ways of how do I take this this information and make it so that people who are doing it this way will still get that information and still feel like they're being considered and nurtured. Another aspect of it, and again, customer journeys don't often use this language, so that's why I'm kind of talking about it really off the bat right here, is that the difference between somebody who is problem aware or someone who's problem unaware, meaning that they don't really realize that what about the problem that they're facing, or at least that maybe it's a symptom and that there's a deeper problem behind it. And I talk about that as well. I actually would like to do a full-on video, I think, of like the narrative arc that I use for my content and my copy writing. But I think a lot of us are talking to people who are like, oh, they already know about the solution. They already know. And it's like, but you're not catching everybody, or you're catching people who are like far enough along that maybe they're already dealing with it, like DIYing it, and maybe they're not really looking to outsource it, whatever that looks like for your business. So it was interesting to be like problem aware, solution aware, and like, again, the people who are solution aware are the people who are ready to buy. They may have been nurtured in some other place and they're landing on you. So kind of having different content for people who are like, hey, we know you're dealing with this. We know you are hitting like a health crisis, or you're not getting enough sleep, or you're not getting enough sleep. Let's just leave it there. Or you're feeling pain. But that is a symptom to something that is deeper. And I think and again, that was a health example, but there's also non-health examples. There's examples financially, right? Emotionally. A good emotional example is I used to work with somebody who is an author and meditation teacher. And an example that I like to come back to again and again is, when you're in a relationship with, your spouse or, your partner or whatnot, and not for everybody, but this is true of me, and this is like an example I've seen used before with that particular client, is like you just kind of get to a point where you're in an argument and maybe something got said, and you just start to see red, right? You're just like that anger just kind of takes over, and you have a hard time, like, reasserting, or, control, or not even necessarily control, but like, again, the anger kind of flares up, and then you might say something that you regret. And like that is the like the boiling point, the tipping point in a relationship, of like, okay, like with meditation, I can take that boiling point moment and allow, like, you allow the anger to happen, but also let it pass and process through it in a way that's healthy, without like venting or expressing that towards my partner in a way that they don't deserve. So that is, kind of, that people might be aware that that is an issue for them. Like maybe they have like an anger, or maybe they're having difficulties in their relationship or communicating in their relationship, and they may not connect it to meditation, and again, not everyone will deal with it in the same way, but like for the people that are receptive, or the people that are, attracted to, how you go about, managing that stuff, not everybody, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. This is the why this is not scripted at all. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the aspects that I like to think through of, the customer journey. Again, very kind of high level of, just helping bring people in to it, and understanding that, maybe there is something that they need help with. And again, it doesn't mean that everybody has to go and buy the course necessarily, but I think that's enough for people to be like, okay, I'll watch this YouTube video, or okay, I'll listen to this podcast episode where this person's being interviewed about this topic. And I think that's enough. You don't have to get people all the way across. I think we because we own a business, and yes, we do need customers. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z because the last times I've done X, Y, and Z, nothing really came of it. But I think that because people like me, who, I'll use my own stuff as an example. The first mastermind I ever signed up for was Sweet Spot Strategy with Rachel Cook, who now is founder of like the CEO Collective. One of the first webinars I think I ever attended was hers. It was for Get More Clients. It was for something different. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so later, actually maybe a year and a half later, that I actually did the full mastermind. But you would think, oh, it was this launch strategy that was successful in converting me, but it really wasn't that. It was something way far away. And then maybe the Fired Up and Focused challenge that was available in the podcast that she has. And then eventually I'm like, okay, now that this launch is happening, I'm now ready. So you can't always attribute. I mean, we would love to be able to attribute every person to a specific event, but it's all coalescing. There are people who will like hear you on a podcast and like book a discovery call. That does happen, right? Like I said, there's people who make decisions in different ways. If they're aware of the problem and they like what you're saying, and they resonated with your story, and they got some value from that podcast or from that collaboration that you did with somebody else, again, that can lead to something immediate. But the fact that it didn't necessarily doesn't mean that it wasn't successful in its own way. Especially because I think especially from the collaboration side of things, relationships are so important that, again, it may not be that first collaboration that fully becomes something measurable, like successfully for you, or tangibly successful. But those relationships are just continuing to build on each other. You don't always know how they're going to lead. So I think that really is prioritizing that being visible in that collaboration is something that I have not been doing, and I really need to lean more into on a personal level. But I also see it with my clients. Like I talk to my clients about like, okay, where are you showing up? Because, and again, this is something that I learned from Rachel Cook. Like I said, I want to credit the people that I, take some of these things from. A lot of the marketing, we think we're doing progress. Again, I talked about this in the YouTube video last Tuesday. We think we're doing progress by posting on stories and like maybe making social media posts or writing on LinkedIn or writing to our email to our email newsletter. Not saying that those things aren't valuable in their own way, but those are people who have already opted into hearing from us, meaning that it's people who already either are aware of like they people who are already in our world and know about us. And again, those people are maybe waiting to see, or maybe they need to be nurtured. Maybe they're just not in the right stage of their life or business to work with you yet, but they're still interested in some way. Again, you don't necessarily know their circumstances, but that's only going to take you so far. You're going to eventually either, potentially get people fatigue if you're trying to sell to them all the time. I know there's been a few times, and I'm going to talk about this more in my video next week, of folks who I think are in the inbox every single day. And it's kind of like, I heard from you yesterday. Like, I'm compulsively an inbox zero person. I'm not at zero right now, but I try to like stay on top of my emails every single day. And I keep opting into stuff I need to stop. It's a problem. It's a serious problem, everybody. But I'll be like, you just talked about this. Like it'll be, if it's purely a promotional email, or it's like disguised as a story, but really it's promotional. It's like, you literally were in my inbox yesterday about the same thing. It's like, I understand that, again, I'm not in the right stage, so maybe somebody needs to see it that often. But for me, it's like, no, that turns me off, actually. I hate to say that, because I know a lot of email folks are like, email every day, you will make sales. And it's like, for me personally, again, because I'm like, I'm going to make the decision when I'm ready to make the decision. Do not, like, when I am ready, I will come to you, or you can do like a monthly time to promote yourself or workshop or whatever that looks like. We'll talk about that more later in this video, but people will come to you when they are ready, but you also have to like let them know on a regular basis when to do that, right? So there's a balance, but to me, daily is not it. That's, again, maybe not everyone else cares as much about that. But because I know I can just delete them out of my inbox, but it's like, no, you're just ruining my inbox zero right now with stuff that isn't really giving me a lot of value. Which I guess, now that we're talking about email inboxes, I kind of want to touch upon opt-ins and lead magnets, because I think that, at least for me, there's like a huge, I wouldn't say debate, but there's a big shift going on with lead magnets and with ways to get people to opt in to your newsletter. And, I talked about it on my video on Tuesday. If you haven't seen it, it's in my videos on YouTube. And email newsletters, of course, are valuable, right? Because it is a way to, like, you're not subject to an algorithm, which is super important. Like, again, people you show up in their inbox no matter what. Again, no algorithm is telling you whether or not you get to be seen. You show up in everybody's inbox as long as, you're not being called a spam. But, oh my goodness. But people have to make the decision, right, to open it. I don't know what I was doing. Oh my gosh. ADHD, y'all. Sorry. I just got distracted. But I think that in some ways, lead magnets are just not working the same way that they used to, right? It used to be enough to give people a free workshop, a free video, like a 3-part video series, or a checklist, or a resource list, or a workbook. And I know a lot of people have been replacing that with maybe like a lower price digital product. Again, because of how expensive ads have become, I think that's probably part of it. I have downloaded so many opt-ins. I think it's because I want to still believe in them as a marketer. But I think the ones that I have seen that have been doing the most, again, because this is getting people to the point where they know about you, or know about the problem, or again, giving them at least some tangible win. So the ones that seem to be doing the best, the quizzes have always kind of been an evergreen, like they work well. I think that, anybody who was like the Teen Beat, or I can't even remember the one, like Cosmo Girl, I think was the one that won the quizzes that I used to do as a kid. We want to know that, about ourselves. We want to learn about ourselves. This interactive, anything that's like interactive is definitely going to still work out. I've seen calculators do well. I like tools. Growth Tools is the one that's really made their whole like email list practically on things like Go Viral, or they have a lead magnet builder, like they have a speaker database, like all those different things, like things that people can tangibly use. I think also templates. I think that template, or like either with Notion or project management or something, like you can directly like swipe and use. And I think what's nice about things like that, and I think that's something that's a lot more accessible, because tools are harder for people to make. Calculators can be hard for people to make. Quizzes, let me tell you, I had a quiz and it was a lot of writing. I had to write not just the questions, but the results pages, the email sequences. It was a lot. So it's not everything is accessible. And the quiz software was also, kind of, you know, more expensive than, I was really willing to invest in at the time. But something that's like a resource, or like I said, a swipe file or a template. Again, a lot of people are doing that as a digital product, but if it's something that's good enough that either you use with paid clients, which is what my opt-in is right now, or like something that like, hey, I'm giving this thing that I would normally charge for free, but it's something that also it stays top of mind. Like one of the examples I used in a previous workshop with somebody was like a reading tracker in Notion, like what they were reading, what was their TBR, what thoughts that they had about it, maybe quotes that they like wanted to remember for later and have in a database in Notion. And I think what's cool about things like that is if you use it enough, you're top of mind. Like I'm every time I use that reading tracker, I'm going to think of size business, or anytime you're gonna like copy and paste some of the stuff from my brand voice guide, you will presumably think about my business. So I think that is just like, how can you take things that have already created or already using, or clients are using and you're liking, and again, taking a piece of that paid thing and using it as an opt-in. I think that can have a lot of success. So I think that is another piece of it. So we talked about it again. I'm going to circle back. I think because we have to kind of balance, again, people knowing how to work with us, right? There's lots of people who, again, I'm not a fast action taker. So I have a problem being like, hey, this is how to work with me. Because I'm just not that person, like who will be like, okay, I opted in, time to buy your course now, like unless it's something that's like very, very urgent to me or time sensitive. Like for example, we're about to hit April. If it's like something about bookkeeping or taxes, like again, that might be something that even I will be like, okay, yes, I don't want to have to deal with this ever again. Please, please deal with this for me. But in general, yeah, I'm not that person. But we do have to balance, right? Because not everybody makes the same decisions the same way that I do. So it's like when to kind of ask for the sale is, I think, one of the hardest things that we really deal with. In fact, that could be its own topic. So I'm going to try to be succinct about it, but just know if this is like, if any of these individual things we're talking about, you have questions about, I will answer them in the comments, but also if you feel like there is some feedback of like, hey, I would love to see a whole video on that, feel free to tell me. I will. I want to tailor the content to what people are asking and needing right now. But let me go back to what I was saying. But people do need to know, like, I think even as long as you delivered something that where they're either they're understanding their problem better than they did before, they have momentum towards that desired result, they understand what's at stake for themselves or for the people around them if they don't really take care of this. They feel supported and seen. Like maybe you gave them some insight that they didn't have before. Like I said, it doesn't have to be every single piece of content, especially public facing content. I think email newsletters, it's very common now at the very end to be like, hey, here are the main ways to work with me. They've opted into your email list. And again, it's not center stage. It's not like in their face. So I do use that as well, just because people might be ready next week versus last week. So, You don't have to do that. But I think from like public facing content, like a YouTube video, like a podcast, like social media, I go by like the 80-20 rule of like 80% of it is me just being like, hey, here is value for you. Here is things that I think would be helpful for you. And then like 20% of the time, one of every five, basically. Oh yeah, hey, this is what I do with people. Here are the results and again, it doesn't have to be like buy my thing, but like here are the results I get for people. Here are the people that I work with. This is maybe a time sensitive promotion, if that's something that resonates with you and your business model. So that's another way to go about it. And also, I feel like, again, not everyone's going to see everything all of the time, but I think that um, that's at least enough for people who are just landing on you and finding out about you. Again, the people who are fast action takers have that information, and the people who are keeping you top of mind will also, maybe that 1 out of 5 hits them at the right time, at the right place, which is the goal, of course. So that's kind of how I teach people, and it seems to work well. Like I said, there are other places, in your email signature, if you want a place to book your call. Like, again, there's ways to help people, move through the customer journey, or to get to the point if they are ready to purchase, or at least get on a discovery call with you, to make it easy for them. Right? The whole point of copywriting and of like marketing and selling is to reduce the friction involved in making the purchase. So if you do want, again, more sales, right? Don't make it hard. Don't make it them have to jump through hoops. If they're on your email newsletter, every newsletter could have that in like the bottom of the footer or whatnot, or on your email signature, or like obviously a book now, page or button on your website. So again, reducing the friction, while also, again, maybe not every single day in their face with like, buy me, buy for me, buy for me. But there's a balance. I'm non-binary. Sunday's transgender day of visibility. So be visible, everybody, please, because that is going to, be the factor that's going to drive the growth of your business. But also, because I'm non-binary, there's a third option. It's not just used car salesman or never get a sale, or never ask for the sale, or, hey, this is how you can work with me. Like, there's a middle point. We can do it in a way, we can be authentic and be like, hey, this is my story. This is how I do what I do. This is the process I take people through. This is what results they can expect, in a way that feels good to us. So you don't have to, have these two like dichotomies in your mind. There's a third path. There's always a third option. Anytime someone tells you black or white, or in your mind you think, oh, I can only do it this way or that way, just think about me, think about your non-binary pal over here, and be like, what's the third option? What's the third option I'm not considering right now when it comes to some of those things? So anyway, I know that kind of rambled a bit. I hope that was still valuable. That's, like I said, I like doing unscripted. It helps me get more comfortable talking through these things in an off-the-cuff manner. I'm very much a scripted person, so I kind of like exercising this muscle. But if you have any questions or feedback or suggestions for content, please let me know. I will hopefully put in the comments the workshop where we're going to talk through all of the ideas you may have for your marketing and really prioritizing them into an action plan. Again, touching upon that customer journey, touching upon collaborations, touching upon each aspect of what's going to make a difference in our business and how we can ask for that sale in a way that feels good to us. And of course, I'm going to do that in a way, I will pitch at the end. So just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like in real life, so you can kind of feel, see that it is possible to do that. So thank you, everybody. Look forward to chatting with you next week.